Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this afternoon, with host Lillian Cauldwell, we are going to discuss briefly the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and then some commentary. Due to the unfortunate incident that happened this week when two teens decided to fight each other, not with their fists, not with karate, but with two guns. Over 10 people were injured and shots were fired, and they were accosted, and it turned out to be an argument between these two teenagers. So what does the Constitution have to say about the right to own guns? Yes, it was established by our forefathers in the Constitution that we have the right to bear arms. But is that all there is to it, or is there more to the story? The Second Amendment to the Constitution is law, verbal law, who identify with Americans having the right to bear and own weapons and to use them. And every time there's an atrocity with guns involved, whether adults, teenagers, or even young children, there's controversy and debates between the people, the government, and the National Rifle Association about what part of the Constitution really justifies for the civilians to bear and own weapons. There are many interpretations to the Second Amendment. So what does it really say? It reads as follows: a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, what exactly does this mean, and how is it interpreted? Because each person who reads that paragraph has a different version of what they believe the Second Amendment means. The National Rifle Association states bluntly, it's the right for anybody to bear arms to protect themselves. Well, that's good, but it's rather broad. Protect themselves from what? We have a standing militia. We have the Army, we have the Marines, we have the Navy, we have the Reserves Unit, we have a federal Army. So what exactly are we protecting ourselves from? We have military police, we have the FBI, we have policemen. So why are we still bearing arms? Because when the Constitution was put together in the late 1800s, it stated that we had the right to bear arms and to use them. Unfortunately, it didn't stipulate at what age. It did not say whether the person was of sound mind and body. They didn't say for arguments, disagreements, drunken rages. They didn't indicate whether it was for suicide or for protection or to just kill somebody because you felt that they needed to die. So how does that affect you and what you believe it means to you? According to some people, the amendment meant that since the people who put our great nation together held long-standing suspicion of a standing army influenced by the wars of Great Britain, that they wanted to protect the people in our country and in their individual states and cities and villages against any possible encroachment of power, and not believing that their new government could do that all by themselves. It was okay for the citizens to carry weapons. Side note, do you agree with a recent ruling that teachers have the right to bear arms once they go through a training course and bring their revolvers with them to class and have them in plain sight of the students? So if there's any trouble, they can use that weapon on their own students? Because let's face it, a lot of these shootings in our schools are done by the students who go to that school. There's no age limit on handling a firearm. Kids in Texas learn as young as 9 or 10 for hunting. I was told by my station manager that in Massachusetts, the kids are taught younger than that so they can go out hunting with their parents, and they are encouraged to go to the shooting range and practice firing at the targets. Do they also have that right to go out to bear weapons, or is that law just for adults over the age of 18? They don't say. The Second Amendment, according to the person who wrote this article, believes that that law was always about federalism, which protected the power of the states to have and to regulate the militia rather than granting individual rights. However, the courts interpreted in a different way until two cases in 2008 and 2010 completely turned everything on its head, including the legal and constitutional theories of what it meant. In the case of the District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court held that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm, independent of any service in a militia, for legal purposes such as self-defense. In a subsequent case, McDonald versus Chicago, the court extended this protection against bans by all state and local government. These two cases established the individual right to gun ownership for the first time, but importantly, they were only applied in relation to absolute bans. The Supreme Court continues to allow almost all restrictions on firearms short of an outright ban. It is the politics of gun regulation in the US. The Second Amendment is a political symbol rather than strong legal protection. An understanding of where guns are in American culture is needed to fully understand the issue of gun regulation. The General Social Survey found that gun ownership has declined from 49% of households in 1973 to 34% in 2010, though the Gallup opinion poll reports a lower figure, unchanged from 1972 to 2010 at 43%. A substantial number of American households own a gun. Traditionally, owning a gun was meant for hunting. That was its main purpose, to find food, or take home a head and mount it on the wall. personal protection has now become the main reason cited by gun owners, from 26% in 1999 to 48% in 2013. Despite the worries over widespread school shootings or supermarket parking lot shootings, the homicide rate from firearms has fallen since the 1990s. In 1993, which was considered the peak of homicides, the firearm homicide rate was 70% lower in 2011 than in 1993, while violent crime has fallen since the 1990s. However, mass shootings still continue and concerns everyone. And most citizens believe that crime has gone up rather than down. And this continues the fear of crime influencing gun policy. Public opinion, however, favors stricter gun control, especially those parents who have lost their children, their school-age children, to gun violence. So what is more important? Gun ownership or protect your gun right? Now, we do have laws in place that limit the way a person can buy a gun. However, the crazy still seems to obtain them. It doesn't help that we now have the internet and people can do research via Google and find out how to put together a gun, i.e. the ghost gun. And even though they do have restrictions on people with mental illnesses and limiting access for those with mental diseases, these people still get a hold of guns. There are bans on assault rifles, such as the AR-15 that was used in Orlando. And these sorts of weapons were banned in 1994 under the Clinton administration. But that law was allowed to lapse in 2004, and it'll probably not be reenacted by any recent Congress. So what about gun control? Well, that differs among party lines, whether you're conservative, a liberal, a Republican, or a Democrat. The Republicans are less likely to support a national database or assault weapons ban. And while former clients, political clients, have promised gun control and stronger background checks with a national database, nobody has done anything about it. It's just words. And that some political candidates want to take away a citizen's right from owning weapons. So these statements are more symbolic. And neither party wants to get into a political fight to enact gun control due to the potential for a backlash from gun enthusiasts. So what is a person to do? What are you allowed to do? What aren't you allowed to do? Well, depending how you look at it, there are many ways that our citizens rationalize owning a gun. Everywhere from protecting your children, home invasion, an attempted robbery, somebody coming in by force, accosted in the street. But where does it stop? something for you to think about. Would you want your child to learn how to use a gun at the age of 2? Who is he going to fight? What is he going to be using the gun for? I believe that if you're going to own a gun at hand, you need to teach your children and your spouse the proper safety procedures one must be held responsible to. And that to make it very clear that guns are not water pistols or fake. Guns hurt people. People kill with guns. And you need to educate your children with the understanding that there's a reason why daddy or mommy lock up their firearms at night so that no one can go in, pick the lock, and secure themselves. What a shining, nice little toy. Look, it's pink and matches my sneakers. These are weapons of mass destruction. Right up there with the bombs, the drones, cannons, anything that destroys and takes away life. So what is a person supposed to do? Well, a person needs to be knowledgeable of how to use a weapon and how to use it properly. And the other thing that a person is responsible for is to make sure they separate the bullets from the gun. In other words, you're not going to store your gun and your bullets in the same place. You're not going to leave a loaded gun lying around on a coffee table. And when your kids play those video games or watch Cowboys and Indians on TV, make sure that they understand that this is make-believe. And then in real life, somebody gets hurt. My call to action is A, listen to this full Lest We Forget historical, the Second Amendment for gun control, and then form your own opinions and make sure the information you get is correct. It's not word of mouth, by mouth, or an opinion expressed by somebody. Find out the facts for yourself. Or better yet, write a letter to one of the parents who have lost a child when their son and daughter were killed at school, and find out firsthand how it feels to lose your son and daughter like that. Guns are not for play. They do serious work. Be aware of that. Another call to action. Become involved with your community. Find out what you need to do in order to protect your children and their friends from casually finding your revolver and the bullets, pointing it at them and pulling the trigger. During the 50s, air rifles were popular. And if your parents could afford it, they would go out and buy you one. One of the first lessons my brother and I learned was you never, ever point a gun at a person. It's always muzzled down to the ground. And that is something you will need to make sure that your children understand. Do you have a topic you want heard, discussed? Unless we forget, text us 484-364-1032, name, email, phone number, and the topic, and we will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Shy about texting? There are comment forms on our website, https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Again, leave your name, your phone number, your email, and what topic you would like to hear discussed, and we will discuss it. Thinking of becoming a podcaster? Passionate World Talk Radio is looking for a few good, passionate people who have something to say. So please, again, contact us. You can find us on facebook.com/passionate world radio. You can find us on twitter.com/PWT radio. And again, fill out a comment form or just text us 484-364-1032. Do you want to empower your voice? Of course you do. Well, there's a book out that tells you exactly how to empower your voice. The old title was Gold Nuggets Podcasting, and now is Digital Strategies for Podcasting by Vicki Esther Chang and myself, Lillian Cauldwell. You can find it at Amazon.com. It tells you everything you want to know, plus it gives you practical step-by-step instructions with a workbook, and become interactive with your work. The upshot is you may even get an introduction to a live internet talk radio station by doing a 6-month internship and eventually becoming a permanent host on Passionate World Talk Radio. Thank you very much for listening today. And remember, podcasting is more than just speaking into a microphone.